Well, thank you everyone for logging on and joining us. My name is Devin. I'm with NOFA New Jersey, having a great time at the NOFAMass Summer Conference. You are attending the Y Certified panel with a lovely group of farmers and experts. Before we get to the panel, I'm just going to read through a few of our intro slides. I want to acknowledge the land that we work, farm, live upon, as we work to heal the destruction caused by colonization. We appreciate your support, solidarity, and continued learning. I'll be dropping links into the chat throughout this session. One you can click on is native-land.ca to find the land you are currently on. We are looking to center racial equity in the food system. In an agricultural system built on stolen land and the forced labor and exploitation of Black, Indigenous, and other people of color, our conference aims to center equity in the food system. Today, if you're here in person, join the caucus groups from 12:45 to 1:45 p.m. in the Sheehan Hall multipurpose room and the Sheehan Hall dining room. And for those of you unaware, there are some great organizations listed that are doing equity work throughout these 7 states in the NOFA region. Anyone joining us virtually, please feel free to drop any additional organizations into the chat. We'd also like to thank our partner level sponsor, Stonyfield Organic, more sponsors that you see on the screen, and all of these supporter level sponsors. If you're going to spend any money, spend it with these folks who continue to support NOFA and organic agriculture and food systems. Last but not least, NOFAMass is growing, hiring. Visit nofamass.org/jobs to see open positions, including conference coordinator, administrative director, and assistant development director, along with other opportunities. And I will pass this off to Hannah, who's the education coordinator at NOFAMass. Hannah, do you want to introduce our panel?
Yeah, thank you.
And the TOPP project?
Yeah, that's right. I'll get to introducing our panel here soon. Give you guys some context as to why we're here. So NOFAMass has been granted a partnership through the USDA to help farmers certify organic. It's called the Transition to Organic Partnership Program. And as we're in the process of encouraging farmers to transition, giving farmers the support that they need to transition, we've come a lot into the question of, well, why should I even bother certifying organic? I'm practicing organic, and what about the costs and everything like that? So we've set up a panel today to piece it all out, to have honest conversation, to ask good questions, and find out if either certification is right for you, or if there's anything about the certification process that you didn't know. Whatever it is, we'll flush that all out. I want to bring up the basically the inequities, thank you, amongst and within the USDA, and how disproportionately these funds have helped farmers of color versus not, and it lies more on the side of not. So I want to call that into this conversation as well. Notice how, who is here present in this room. And as we answer these questions about accessibility, what farmers need, the different costs and everything like that, I want to hold space for our farmers of color and marginalized farmers. Let's see. So the format, I'm going to be asking our panel here some questions, guiding questions. If you have anything burning that's super relevant you want clarified from our panel, please feel free to ask. Devin will be monitoring the chat for us. Panelists, if y'all are, want to feed on each other's answers, if something's really relevant to you or you want to comment on it, feel free. Again, I want to keep this kind of open, yet, in a direction. And I think we are ready to jump in. So first we have Jeremy Barker Plotkin. Jeremy's been farming organic vegetables since 1999. He's worked on and managed farms as small as 0.5 acre to 18 acres, and has previously certified organic eggs and does pasture livestock as well. Abby here at Foxtrot, oh, and Jeremy's and Amber's. Abby here at Foxtrot Farm is certified organic and grows botanicals, herbs, and climate resilient foods on 5 acres with Asheville West. And Laura is from Long Life Farm in Plotkin, not too far from here. She farms on 2.5 acres, is an independent organic inspector. She sits on the NOFA board, is a NOFA staff member, helps with soil analysis, and also helps folks within the certification process. So hopefully we have a nice mixture of experiences here. Oh, and one more thing, I got inspired to host this panel when I went to the National Organic Standards Board NOSB meeting down in Atlanta. And they had a diversity of farmers on the panel who really were, it was an amazing insight to why different farmers choose to certify organic. Ranging from values to finances to, I don't know, it's just something I thought I could do. So yeah, I encourage folks to share and ask questions. And hopefully we can really piece this thing apart. So I guess we'll start with you, Abby, and your decision to certify organic. And that question will remain for all of you, but I'm interested because you have a very specific niche who you're catering to. So yeah, why you decided to certify?
Okay. Yeah, hey everybody, thanks Hannah. Okay, well, so I worked on a number of vegetable farms before starting my own farm. They were all, no spray, no pesticide, like you could say organic, and some were certified and some weren't. But one of my farm mentors, this wonderful person, Ned, who farms at Green Tractor Farm in New Mexico, gave me, I like how this question came, back in my early farming days, and he was like, listen, like all the things that you have to do to be organic, like people poo-poo the paperwork, but like the records that you need to keep to be organic are like records you really should be keeping for your business anyway. And like if it's like a lot of extra paperwork for you, then like you weren't doing the business right anyway. And that's a thing that really stuck with me, especially because I'm a person who can really use outside accountability, like especially in the middle of the farm season. If I'm like really stressed out and there's a lot to do, I'm only gonna keep records if I know that there's an outside source, like that Laura's gonna come do my inspection and I'm gonna need to be able to like go backwards through all my records and pass this audit. And then we also, because we grow botanical herbs and we sell to a pretty niche market, we do a lot of shipping across the country. We don't have the opportunity all the time. This isn't as true now as it was when I started, but at the time when I started, we didn't have the opportunity to make as many close connections with people locally who were going to be buying our products. And so on a national market, it felt like in the absence of being able to say, to get to know someone and be in relationship with, like, where, these are all of our practices, having the organic label on the products allowed people to trust what we did. And we also sell to a lot of businesses and companies who are small makers who are themselves certified organic, and so they need to be sourcing organic products.
Yeah, I think in a lot of ways, at least my current understanding is not necessarily why I originally started, but I'm certified because I believe in organic farming and I believe that the word organic means something, and I think that certification is what gives it that meaning, and has maintained that meaning. You look at words like natural doesn't mean anything. And at one time, like natural foods was like a movement and something that people really cared about, and now it really doesn't mean anything. And we see this happening with the word regenerative now, where it's a term that was coined by Robert Rodale, and now like PepsiCo has a page about their regenerative agriculture, and in their mind, what that means is Roundup based no-till And maybe some cover crops or something, that's regenerative, so that word is very quickly losing its meaning, and you know, the word organic was developed by the organic movement that was trying to do agriculture a different way, and the certification process was something that was also developed by those farmers as a way of defining and, you know, putting in place some standards that say this is what organic is. And it was also like, because there wasn't a unified definition necessarily, it was those same organic farmers that went to the federal government and wanted to pass a law to get a unified standard across the country. And there's an extent to which, you know, since it's kind of entered into the political process, and those standards have been weakened some, but there's still a baseline definition of what organic is, and that's why organic means something, because of certification. In the moment that I decided to get certified was maybe my second year of farming. And again, it was like entering the anonymous market that we had the opportunity to develop a relationship with the Whole Foods market. And that's when becoming certified seemed like it made sense, because we had to be certified to sell the Whole Foods, but also, like, you know, I wasn't able to like be there at the foods to talk to people about my practices. I've since, like, I feel like that like direct relationship with the consumer, I don't think that that's really a great. You're still like, people don't come up and ask like, well, do you do this on your farm? Do you do that? I guess I've like had experiences where I've talked to people about other local farmers, and they're like, oh yeah, well, they're a good farmer. And like, well, you know, we sell non-organic blueberries in our store because that's, you know, what we can get. All had people come up and be like, oh yeah, they're good farmers. And it's like, how do you know? What do you know? I don't know anything about how they farm. So just having that relationship, that direct relationship, I don't think really is the same as having someone come out to your farm to inspect and kind of keep you honest about it.
That's interesting, because a lot of times what I hear is when folks don't decide to certify, the baseline was like, well, we want to develop a relationship with our customer, our consumers, and it's clear that it's actually kind of hard to do that. And what I hear you saying is the certification process makes it so that they know, hopefully, at least a little bit.
Yeah, you develop a direct relationship, you like, you know that they're a nice person. that's good, that's important. But it's not the same thing as having someone look over your paperwork and see what you're spraying, what you're not spraying.
Well, and so you guys folks sell wholesale, is that right? Technically you do too, Abby, yeah, and Laura, you wanna,
Yes, so I started my farm in 2011, and having been a mom who purchased organic groceries, I didn't really think of anything else I would do. I mean, I started the farm and in 2013, I was at a NOFA board meeting, and Pete Leslie was saying, I said, is anybody here that can kind of help me with questions about organic certification? Careful what you wish for. And you become that person. But there was no question in my mind that I was going to certify once I started the farm. Because when I'm buying things, I'm looking for the organic label. And so I feel like people automatically have trust in your practices when they see that logo. And sure enough, you know, as soon as we started our farm, you know, all I did was put the shares up on the website, and people were clamoring, oh, it's certified, great. And they were confident that you were doing the right thing. So that was the main reason that I certified. Now, since I've been certified for 10 years, there are so many other benefits that have come along with being certified. A small one, but a big one, I think, is the fact that you don't get sprayed when you do the state dust mosquito spray. You can be excluded from that. And so many non-certified farms who claim they're organically growing want to be part of that benefit also, but they can't unless they're certified. So that's a small benefit, but a big one. And you can also exclude yourself from municipal spraying as well. But I do think that just making people understand what your part is of trying to combat climate change too. You know, the practices that we utilize, you know, with this rain, you know, we're not near a river, so we didn't have the unfortunate flooding. But you know, 11 inches of rain in a week and not a puddle to be seen really gave me more confidence in what I was doing was the right way to go in terms of being certified. And a lot of those soil practices that Jeremy was talking about is what organic soil standard practices are all about. You know, making sure that you are doing the right thing for your soil, cover cropping, crop rotation, utilizing the right amendments to ensure that your soil is fertile and that you can take on those droughts like last year and the rain this year. So those are benefits that have come from being a certified farmer.
So now I want to get a little bit into the complications for the, you know, what people are thinking about as a, you know, the troubles of certifying organic. Can you guys talk about your experience with what's required of you, whether we're talking about paperwork or inspections, or let's say like the amount of if there's like a pollinator or like a hedgerow requirement too, right? So like, what are the certain requirements that are asked of you? And do you feel bogged down by them? And then also, if you don't, how have they helped your price? As well as maybe any resources you'd like to share with people, such as the USDA cost share program, or say the NRCS, when they helped you in the process of navigating those twisty, turning process. So whoever feels confident.
Wait, is that hedgerow required? I grew botanical, so I feel like I'm like,
You're all hedgerow.
but I didn't know that it was required.
Biodiversity standard is one that the inspector will look at, but generally, if you're having, you know, flowering shrubs or anything like that, then you know, it's something that they look at. In the past.
Well, I wasn't worried about I was or like impressed.
But I'll just comment further. I think that what Abby mentioned about having records as a business, you know, some of the things that when I help farmers to get their certification, they always hear about this farm paperwork, but it can be simplified and it can be customized to whatever it is that they will find useful for their farm. You know, so you do need to keep receipts of everything, seeds you buy, inputs you buy, nematodes or whatever you're using, you know, you need to have receipts for those, and you need to keep track of your production. So what farm does not have a production plan? Everybody has a production plan, you know, when it gets seeded, when it gets transplanted, when the potential harvest might be. So those are records that are important for auditing the process, you know, when the inspector comes. Those are records that everybody has to do this really far, I think, right? And the other thing that's really important is harvest records, you know, how much is being harvested, so that, you know, that can be audited as well. But I always look at my harvest records. How did I do this year on my tomatoes versus last year? Did I have 5,000 pounds or did I have 2,000 pounds of tomatoes? So I look at that anyway, but that's another record that's important to keep for organic farmers. The cost, I think people hear about being prohibited, but the USDA does offer a reimbursement for the certification, be up to 75% of your organic certification fee. And then there's a second reimbursement that has been out there for the last 2 years called OTEC, O-T-E-C-E. I don't know what it stands for, but it's through the Farm Service. You can get reimbursement for soil testing. water testing. And education, like this event right here to be reimbursed for organic farmers. So there's lots of ways for us to get that certification feedback. And I think that's probably something that people hear about, the paperwork being too onerous and the money being too onerous, but it's really not. In my opinion. You guys,
Yeah, I echo what the other two said about like the records that you need to keep are records that you need to keep. It might be helpful actually to have someone, forcing you to do that. How do you know how much summer squash to plant this year if you don't know how much summer squash you've got? This much acreage or this much bed feet or whatever of summer squash that planted last year. Do you need more summer squash? Do you need to put that do you want it 1/2 times as much, or you need those records anyway? And I guess the paperwork that you do, typically you have to fill out an organic farm plan and it's usually in the spring, but I'm going to do at the end of March. So it's an organic farm system plan, and for me, it's something that I copied last year. So like the first time I did it, it was some work, but now I just copied the one that I did last year and go through it, and all of them changing this way. This is different, but it's it's maybe half a day's worth of work in the spring when I've got time to sit at the computer spring, early spring. For me it's March, and I could do it earlier. And then it's another half a day in the besides the ongoing record keeping, which that's like it's important anyway. Then it's maybe a half a day again during summer, and the inspector comes out and they kind of go through your records. And it's all, the inspection is really about seeing that you're keeping the records. It's not that they have to like do everything, and like you don't have to go through everything. You just have to kind of demonstrate that you're keeping the records. So, and usually there's an audit process too, where maybe summer squash, they'll look at, well, we bought this many summer squash seeds and you planted this many summer squash plants in the greenhouse, and planted out this many bed feet of summer squash, and you harvested this many or this many pounds of summer squash, and it's all about kind of making sure that lines up, but they're not going to go through and do basic experience and all the different products that kind of audit. Usually the inspector's friendly, and it's kind of I'm not going to say it's fun, but usually they might have some advice for you too, with some ideas that about things we can do to improve their business.
There's a good question there. So like the Dan Kaplan system, do you guys see any kind of like app or system that's kind of off the shelf for people that are starting to help them with records?
So the question is if there's any systems that help with record keeping.
Yeah, something off the shelf or something you see coming down the line.
any of the production planning software that people use, you've got X squared, you've got TENS, you've got some other, all of that information, or even just your Excel sheets that you use for planning can be helpful in your production planning, and will be really helpful when the auditor comes to do an audit. So those will help. Now, the USDA is thinking about having a standard application for organic certification in the future, which would be kind of a crazy idea that they're planning. And at that point, when it's standardized nationally, it could be that would be a right time for them.
Right.
For filling out the forms and everything.
But I mean, I can see that coming, hoping that people who are getting into it.
Yeah.
Maybe a couple of things. So we get a producer's certification, but because we dry herbs, we also have a processor certification, and so. I do feel like I do an extreme amount of paperwork for a small corporate. And I think so I'll say like, on the one hand, it like feels a little onerous, like you know. Laura actually did my inspection last year, so like Laura comes to the farm and she's like, okay, here's a lot of calendula that you've dried. Like, show me where this is on your process, like when you process this and enter it into the system, and then, okay, what date was this harvested? Okay, great, what planting is that from? When did you transplant it? When did you seed it? And then what seed lot? So I have to be able to go all the way back, which actually feels like when I can pull it off, it feels pretty impressive, like I'm not like, pat on the back. And when the new food processing rules passed nationally a few years ago, everything that I had to do for organic, like, had us already in compliance. So when it comes to getting, being in compliance with food safety laws, or getting like safe certified, or like getting, like even the health inspectors coming, the fact that I can pass the third-party audit with basting or certifier, like it gives people trust in us already, and it like set me up to be able to do all of those things confidently. So it's hard, and like we've all said, it ends up feeling kind of work. It ends up feeling work. The other thing, since it's the question about challenges, one way that I feel like certification can be challenging is that what is certified for use in organic production can change. So something can be on the OMRI, which is the list of products that are approved for certification, 1 year and like part of your system, and then it can be removed from the list to the next. And if you have it, like in my case, there's this paper mulch that was like an important part of our organic farm system. And at the end of last year, you know, basically got in touch and was like, it's no longer like available for use in organic systems. I have like 10 rolls of this $90 stuff in the barn, and it's like how we manage weeds and perennial beds in the summer. And of course I can like try to find a way to sell it, but I think that there is a complication there where it's like, okay, if I want to stay certified, I all of a sudden actually do have to switch out the way I do things. And you have to be really careful about what amendments you buy. Like I ordered organic compost 1 year, and it ended up that it wasn't actually certified. That it was being sold as organic, but it's not actually on the list. And luckily, like my certifier figured it out before I used it. But you have to be really careful actually to make sure that things are on the list. Because of what Jeremy was saying, like just because something is natural or organic, like there can be a lot of like chemical additives in the things we don't know about. And like at its very best, the Organic Standards Board and the OMRI list are like doing that independent research, but like we don't have time to do this farmers to make sure that we're not putting things in the soil that are harmful. That being said, I think that the organic standards on plastic are like I have no confidence in, and like I use plastic on my farm in part because all of these like more like biodegradable options aren't certified. But I think we don't know what we don't know about like PSAPs and microplastics and how they're getting into the soil. And at this point in time, yeah, your organic produce can be grown into too much plastic. So I think that's a blind side. Yeah.
And being a part of that, you know, must be the process of actually participating in those different levels of decision making. It's probably part of the farmers as well. Does anybody have any other questions while we're on like challenges of certification and stuff like that?
I'm just curious, you mentioned a contacting directly by a certifier. So it feels like that's a fairly intact relationship, or they will contact you and what's the like staff? That's the USDA position, I imagine.
Well, you can speak.
Yeah, all certifiers have to be USDA accredited.
Okay.
But the one that is based in Massachusetts, but there's many choices of certifiers. The farm doesn't have to choose Bay State. They're based in Massachusetts. they actually have a really pretty good close relationship with their farms and they want them to be successful. So if they see that, you know, someone's using something that's falling off the approved list, then they're gonna be in touch. And also it goes the other way too, like if I'm a certified operation, so I'll call and say, hey, you know, this new co-op wants me to use labels on their produce. And I never use labels. So they said, yeah, do it this way and we'll approve it. And within a day, I have my labels approved. So they're really proactive about helping the farm. And I get calls all the time to do an inspection on a rush inspection because there's a brand new farm that wants to sell June 1st, their organic produce. Okay, I'll be out there and get it done. But so yes, it's a really good relationship with most certifiers.
And just to clarify, Bay State, so that all they do, it's an organization called
Yes.
Bay State, they just certify.
Yes, they are a nonprofit organic certifier. Used to be part of NOFA before 2002, when it became a national program. And it's actually the same ED there that was with NOFA, still operating that business. Now, we also have NOFA Vermont and NOFA New York, who are both certifiers. MAFCA in Maine is a certifier. And some state agencies also certify, like Rhode Island Department of Environmental Management, then we have New Hampshire. They generally don't have processing inspection or livestock, they just do crops. But, you know, those are options also for people in there.
One last question for them. So for your certifiers, you pay them just annual fee?
You can split it into 2 payments, like you can pay half when you send in your paperwork and then half is 6 months later.
But it's just like a flat annual fee.
It's a sliding scale based on your income or your gross sales.
And then the reimbursement for the cost share actually comes in the fall.
And it's up to 75%.
75%, limited is capped at 750.
Yeah.
So if you're a bigger farm, it's not 75%.
Just a little history is the fact that NOFA originally, we did our certification. And then when we handed it to USDA, then we had to split our boards off because you couldn't have board members certifying them properties. So basically, we had to do this huge split. This is the USDA.
Yeah, actually, I have similar questions for both, like thinking about certification based on that. So for example, Abby, you mentioned the paper mulch that you couldn't use anymore. So in that case, if you didn't know what you would pivot to, who would you call for advice? Like if you couldn't call your certifier, for example, and say, I understand things they can't advise. So like, would you call NOFA or UNH or rather, you know, your extension office?
No, I probably should have. I mean, I think in this case, I was using the paper mulch like instead of using plastic. So yeah, I looked at my farm systems and I thought, where will we have to put plastic down and where can we switch to like mechanical or like cultivation instead? It is, we grow on a slope, so we switched to a lot more mechanical cultivation. And then all of this, like it ended up being a really hard year to pull out the plastic because we had a lot of erosion. And like I grow in no-till beds that have been like raised in no-till for 4 to 6 years, depending on the bed. And we still had like pretty intense erosion off of it because we were doing more cultivating. And so like, yeah, it was a challenge. I've been like very challenged by the reviewing paper. And I know I could. Yeah, I guess you could call your certifier. I mean, I probably would call CISA, which is the Western Mass Farm Support Organization.
Yeah, extension too is good, especially for pest control. You know, as something comes off the list that they're using for pest control, they're having a list of other things that are affected, and even like stuff that's on the list. You know, what is it? Does it actually work?
Right.
Just because it's on the list and it's listed for a certain profit, a certain pest, it doesn't necessarily
any other questions on questions?
I think it's like a comment and a question. Essentially, can you validate or refute my feelings? Very part-time farmer with limited time. You can't mark it as organic once you cross the $5,000 threshold. But if you're still under, pick a number, 50,000, say. Do you feel that the organic requirements for reporting and data keeping are prohibitive for small farmers who are doing it in a very small fashion, local in their community? Like, I don't have time to keep all the harvest records and everything, all the seeds, document that I search for 3 places to try and find an alternate to the not, organic available seed, but I still want to be certified. Like, could there be a certification light version where, it's an easier application, easier record, simpler? I'm just frustrated that I don't have the time, but I want to be certified and I'm following strictly to the NOFA rules. It's frustrating me because I don't have a way in right now.
Could be that somebody needs to use help with simple. Maybe what you're doing is overkill. I do think that people sometimes, especially sort of type A. Sometimes they overdo it and they overkill it. So maybe simplifying the paperwork is enough to make sure that you have the major things that are. I see a lot of people who do some really good work on Excel sheets and it's like, oh wow, I spent a lot of time doing that. So yeah.
So demystification, almost making it simpler in my
Yeah,
mind.
we can talk about that.
Well, I don't know much about this transition to organic partnership yet, but there is a program where you can be paired with a mentor that would help you with that transition to certified organic. So that could be an opportunity for
Yes.
getting some help with like, you'll need to do this much.
Which we love. So.
I work for a nonprofit organization that has an urban farm. And we get a lot of donations from a lot of our partner organizations. So, and it's May or June, and all the seedlings didn't sell. And so they get donated to us because our farm manager knows everyone. And so we sometimes have like catch 10, sometimes we just donate it to the neighborhood, sometimes we use it. So in that situation, we would only be able to use plants that we knew came from a certified organic farm itself. So, and I guess I'm asking about a situation where there's a little bit more like informal economy going in and kind of more community-based organizations, whether you've heard of or know of any organizations that are coming from kind of that slant, being able to have the level of record keeping, to be able to go through the process.
Yeah, and I want to contextualize that a little bit more as a part of this conversation is saying like, okay, so who is, in your opinion, the certification for? And this is the whole like why certified, like why we're holding this panel today is to kind of go through those different avenues of, so this is your market, this is who you serve, whatever it might be. And I know that you guys have very different enterprises to that, so we can talk about the technical components of it, but that's kind of the element here that I'm trying to get to. It's like, is certification right? And like, why should I do it? So,
So your situation is an urban farm, is it worth certifying? Is that kind of the question?
Yes, like, is it worth certifying? Is it even, does it make sense in any way? We are. One of the things that we do grow vegetables, we do sell vegetables, but we also are a community resource. And we also do community building to inspire dairy existence in our programming. And so, yeah, does it mean? And so, yeah, and we're kind of in the middle of thinking we're not producing this year, but we're in the middle of massive construction projects. So we're really thinking about like, going forward and what's important and how to really build a strong foundation for the farm. And, so yeah, so does it make sense for a program, a farm that is really a program, a nonprofit that has, that is very much, it's a, or part of a mission-based organization. And so, yeah, does it make sense for something that we're here to grow? But we're also to build community, to be an educational resource.
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I think the values and mission of the organization obviously are, you know, important to consider. If the organization feels that would, you know, certifying organic would be part of their commitment. And it also kind of depends on, you know, the people working through their urban farm are the people in place to be able to keep those type of records, or yeah, I mean, the customer who's doing your produce probably in that scenario, you know, they're not saying is it organic or not organic. So looking at what your community is looking for is also important. All organizations of all sizes can be eligible and have a mission to be organic or certified. So, you know, it kind of depends upon what we should have.
I'd say like that specific question about donated
Yeah.
plants. If they are donated from somebody that's certified. They'll typically have a certificate, and you just ask for a copy of their certificate. And that's the same thing, you know, it often happens. You know, I end up coming up a little short on pepper plants, and I have to buy them from a neighboring farm, and I'm gonna buy them from another organic farm, and I need to get their certificate and get an invoice. And it may not actually, the inspector, like if they don't audit peppers, then, you know, they may not actually, you know, have to see that particular piece of paper, but you want to have it. And I'd say there'd be like a certain amount of cost benefit, like how much is the organic certification worth versus I know that there's a potential of, you know, these donated plants coming from somewhere that's not organic or not certified. You know, that is that something that happens a lot, or you know, are you going to be, you know, well, is it only like occasionally that you might have plants donated, and can you build the capacity to grow your own plants so that you're not dependent on you know, on those donations?
No, thank you, and I think that is really helpful, and I think it's interesting. I don't even know, part of the donations isn't always things that we actually ask for. I realize sometimes people kind of offload on us because they know we exist and we will not say no. But there's also the possibility of just giving it to so we're literally. So, but thank you, that is really helpful.
I'll say it sounds like you all like to be kind of nimble, you know, like take what you can get, like redistribute where it can go. And I do think that this, like, maintaining your certification, like as responsive as your like certifier is, like it does, it's hard to be as nimble as what you're describing.
That helps.
And like, even if, you know, like if I like have 5 certified bags of different herbs, but I haven't, you know, like as a processor, and I want to put like lemon balm, lavender, and Tulsi basil together and call it a tea. If I haven't submitted paperwork to Bay State with that specific blend, I can't put the organic label on it, and I also can't store that blend of 3 certified organic things that I've grown in the same bin as the things that are technically certified. So there is like a bureaucratic element that, like, it's not that hard for me to put that all in the spreadsheet and send it to Bay State, but it's that one extra step that might stop me from doing something more great. Yeah, responsible.
And that helps. Thank you. And I do actually think we do get the question if we're organic. So we definitely get that question, but like having that input is very is very helpful. So thank you, I appreciate it.
Yeah, we can talk about that soon too, as far as using more the farmers' feelings on using the language of organic and non-certification and stuff, so.
I think if you're not certified organic, it's acceptable to say we follow the practices of the National Organic Program. And that's kind of the, you know, the technical way you're supposed to say I'm not certified organic, but I am organic.
We can get into that.
Well, I was just gonna add, spin to it is that if the mission of your organization is to help people grow food, then, you know, sometimes having that organic to be standard for the seedlings that are passing through you, obviously is a certification question. But at the same time, if the need is to show people how to grow food and get them those plants, then you can give them those plants in a certain way, and also to spin it to giving instructions for growing those plants organic, helping those people do it, because if you stop them from getting those plants, then you haven't even gone past the point of giving them an opportunity to figure that out themselves. And that's a big step for a lot of people, like start all my garden stuff from the seed. And my son's mother said to me, she'd never seen plants that were started with. So in other words, most gardening starts with seedlings. And if it's a stuff that helps and when people get started, then do it any way you can, you know, because that's the mission, is to get them started. And then a lot of times in organic, and I've come, you know, I grew up on a very large conventional farm. I've talked about many times the tent that we have for organic must have the flaps open for everybody. So if they're wanting to do something that is growing and doing something themselves, then they need to provide that opportunity without saying, no, it has to be organic, it has to be this, it has to be a certain number of plants within a bag and those kind of things. So I just wanted to spin that out to them in the market, just the certification.
And as far as the market too, you know, that's a big part of this conversation, is who people are growing for. Like, you know, Abby is someone who's growing organic herbs for folks, like, they want to know that there's no pesticides being used or, you know, inorganic pesticides, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that audience in your community is probably maybe the biggest thing to take into consideration, apart from, you know, your values.
You're okay with one more question?
That's fine, yeah, go ahead.
So for still challenges, something that's been on my mind a lot recently has to do with like legacy pollutants in soil, especially if you're considering like, an urban context. And with like recent flooding events, like how does that impact organic gardeners when there's storm water carrying a lot of toxins? And then what's the next step?
Excellent question. I asked this same question last week to my inspector. And unfortunately, there really isn't anything that they're doing differently. I mean, the state has issued guidance on how to manage that produce if it's under water. But there's nobody giving any guidance right now, even certifier, at least not my certifier. They're not giving any guidance as to how that can be taken out of certification. There's that discussion.
Yeah, and I mean, the organic certification is about the process. So there is a withdrawal period after that you can't use any prohibited substances for 3 years before you're before the land is certified. But like the history of it isn't taken into account, and it is all about that you can demonstrate that you're following organic production practices. It's not about whether or not the ground has been contaminated at some point in the past. And I think some people have a lot of trouble with that because there's, you know, there is a potential that there's something historical that's contaminating produce. But from a farmer's perspective, like, what are you gonna do? Like, you can only do the best you can and follow the program. And I think the idea that it's about pesticides and it's about the safety of the produce primarily. To me, as a farmer, it's about encouraging soil health and that gets lost. It's like that it's all consumer focused and it's only about what's in the produce rather than how you're treating the land and the environmental impact. Like that is more why I do it, more why I got into farming rather than kind of a consumer focus.
Is there any concern in terms of certification for measurements?
So I was gonna ask this similar question, so that we can mix this together. Are the organic standards enough? Do you think, depending on, your scale and size, are they adequate? Is it worth it? And what do you as a farmer do to go maybe perhaps beyond organic certification? That works a little.
I don't know.
No, I'm asking if that kind of incorporates your question too.
I'm not sure if it does or not.
I think we got it. I think we got it.
I think this is one of the aspects of where the standards have been weakened. And that the original concept was really more about promoting soil health and the health of the crops and everything, and that like consumer focus that I was talking about, I think has brought it to more like what you can't do, what you can't, what chemicals you can't use. That's kind of become the minimum standard. And so a couple of things that have there's an alternative or an additional certification that you can add now called the Real Organic Project, where you can get certified as real organic. And the two things that they're really targeting are hydroponic, organic, and APHOS confined animal feeding operations. So those are things that have been, kind of like recently become allowed. And this Real Organic Project is going to protest to those things being allowed into organic. So we're Real Organic certified, and they come out. They're basically checking for those two things, that we're not hydroponic and we're not running paper.
And also have some labor justice questions also for the members.
Yeah, justice,
Labor
justice.
Yeah. Yeah, we are. Yeah.
They're done, the Real Organic Project. They'll track it down. And it's really easy, but it is an add-on. You can't just be Real Organic certified. They rely on the organic certifiers to do like most of the really heavy paperwork. And then they do these additional checks.
So just to finish this conversation out, so as and then feel free to add on. So you're like above and beyond your organic certification in your 3 instances. Is that sort of like Real Organic Project? Are there other things that you do?
Yes. There are other things that we do in our farm. No-till is one for a no-till farm. That's not in the organic standards, but it makes our soil that much more not disturbing the soil so much. And we do some other things, like not deleting the soil, making sure we're having organisms in the soil. So those are things that are sort of beyond. We mineralize our soil, which is not necessarily required by organic certification. So yes, I do think that the soil standards practices within the organic certification standards are maybe could be a definition of regenerative in some ways, but there are many ones that go beyond.
Yeah, it's like, organic standards are a baseline. It's not a. You can go be.
Just curious, who certifies real organic? The same company and the same. Totally different.
It's a different organization. They're called the Real Organic Project, and they send inspectors out. And they're one inspectors.
Are they national?
National, yeah.
One organization.
Yeah. Now, there's other organizations like the Real Organic Project, regenerative organic certification through no deal is a similar type of organization, but I don't think they have it near as many firms signed up. And they actually go through a little bit more detail about what's regenerative and what's no till, and there's different 4 or 5 different phases of that you can be defined as. So they actually are charging a fee. Real Organic Project is not, so. But I like Jeremy, I've considered it being a bit of a protest. That's why I want to be part of it, is that we're telling the NOFA, the National Organic Program, that it's not okay to allow hydroponics to be certified organic. And it's not okay to have certified or confined animal operations.
Yeah, these are instances in which so the Organic Food Production Act is what defines organic federally, and so it's actually a law that was passed by Congress. And then the National Organic Program is part of USDA, and they administer the certification process, which is, again, it's an accreditation. So they accredit certifiers, and the certifiers certify the farms. And so those two things, the hydroponic and the CAFO it's in conflict with the original law that defined organic.
In other words, when the law was made, some people have figured out ways of getting around what the original intent was. And now that it's in the law, and it's hard to push that genie back in the bottle. But it's tough. A lot of these also you touched on plant things, but a lot of them have been animals that have gone kind of in the direction that we, as originally thought, we were under control of, but CAFOs is a great example.
Yeah, it's actually not that it was written into the law, the way to get around it is more that, like, administratively, the National Organic Program is now allowing these things that really are in conflict with the way
We've gotten around what the original intent is.
I think the labor piece of it too, that Laura mentioned, is really important, because organic farming started small, right? And as organic farming has been able to scale up to like multi-thousand acre operations that are, mostly worked by crews who are like often undocumented and treated really poorly. The Real Organic Project actually comes out and speaks with their workers, does something to sort of like, because I think consumers are like, oh, it's an organic farm, but how wholesome, and like are not imagining, laborers like living and, like 20 people to a trailer, in the heat in California and not having an house. So like, there's something too that is doing.
Are there any, I've asked questions for a long time, but are there any reactions or feelings that are bubbling up from our audience participants that you want to address with the farmers? I think something that comes up for me is how certification has been this like, something that I look for when I'm shopping, but not necessarily, it's like kind of that baseline, minimum, we want to do this. But if we're talking about like food access and food sovereignty, like I get feelings, like, oh, geez, it's enough. So I don't know if any other feelings are coming up that you want to express or share or have the panel reflect on, but I didn't think that.
Just one thought, because this has been floating in meetings and going to farmers and stuff. I think it's bringing it up to the big picture. It's the fact that I'll ask people farms why they aren't certified. Because they'll say to me, oh, we do everything organic, and we're totally organic, we get it, we're there. And I'm like, why don't you please certify? And they'll say, oh, no, USDA, that's government, we're not gonna do that.
or they'll have other reasons. But in speaking to a couple contacts I have on the USDA, they'll say, well, the organic movement is so small. We look at the percentage, such a small movement, we gotta listen to the other farmers. And so I go back to these farms and smaller farms and say, if you don't certify, you're not gonna be heard. They're gonna just look at the organic movement as it's just dragging along the ground. And so I asked my contacts, why aren't they doing more for the organic farmers? And they'll say, wow, they got 6%. Now that the enforcement is being funded at the USDA, they've got a lot more money to be enforcing the organic standards. And this is something that, it doesn't just happen with people who are fraudulent and you've probably heard of cases where people have gone to jail for 15 years because they've been fraudulent. Our small farms are being contacted in Massachusetts, New York, Connecticut. If they are marketing their farm as organic on the website and they're not certified. And I'm glad, because for those of us who pay the money and do the work and do the records and the others who are putting on their sign that we're organically grown, but they're not certified, that's upsetting. So now I did inspect a farm a month or so ago who said that they were contacted by the NOFA and told that they would be fined $10,000 if they didn't certify and take everything off their website that they were marketing. So it's happening to small farms now too. They decided to go the route of certification. And those farms that talk organic and aren't, they're not counted as organic farms. No, yeah.
It feels like a philosophical thing. Like, is the question and the concern that these farmers are raising, like, it feels like that philosophical, like, is government like this big bad boogeyman up here who like the man that I don't want to submit to, or is like government this thing that we're all bought into and control? And I don't know how you like change someone's core philosophy around like, but as far as organic, like Jeremy said, it started from farmers. So
That's why I like the idea of the real organic project. Yeah. And my preference, real organic project as well. There's something more and that's the knowledge. Yeah.
but opting totally out, like, but the total opt out doesn't do anything, right? Whereas like
When you get to a certain age, you realize you have to hopefully tap into your wisdom and do things strategically. Because just because you don't like the way candidate A is saying something, you're gonna vote for candidate B. But voting for candidate B actually gets candidate A in. Yeah. No, because
Yeah, philosophically, like, is the government the man or is government us?
yeah.
Like, how do you make it us? You need to participate.
Even though you don't like that direction.
And therefore shift the organic state, right? Because like if we're all participating in the organic state. Right.
Well, let's switch to us. That's right.
I'm curious about, since you guys all are certified organic project. If anyone has any thoughts or feelings about the concern about weakening the perception of the organic label, like, is there any concern about for your own brand, selling it out on consumers about the term organic, or for your, neighbor and friend farms that certified organic, but don't put the real organic project label on there? Like, is there any conversation or thoughts about what that might, what impact might have on consumers?
You mean those that don't do the real organic project too?
Yeah, well, and yourself as well, like, like one concern that I've heard about real organic project is that the term in nature makes it sound like your organic certification that you're gonna say is not real, and that can create doubt in the consumer. So also for your own label, as they're reading your own label, like, what's your thoughts? Are you balancing sort of pros and cons and balancing it?
We've debated this a lot in NOFAs, all 7 states, about should we support the real organic project or should we support the regenerative organic certification or any other add-on labels. We haven't made that position because everybody, has a different position on this. But I do think that, the way that I've personally decided is that, I was worried about, that initially, about having the USDA organic label, minimized if I supported the Real Organic project. But I do think that there is strength in numbers, and I think that the farms that are ROP now are showing, the National Organic Project or the National Organic Program, that there is a huge group of people out here, farmers that are certified, that are their base, that are not happy with the way that, things are moving. So I think we have to be part of that process in order to make change. So I feel good about being part of this.
To me, the fact that it's add-on certification that, like, that's a big concern. That you're like in opposition to organic, but it's not in opposition, it's additional. That, to me, that was when they came out with it, I was like, oh, well, if it's an additional certification that feels better to me than like saying, oh, well, USDA organic has no meaning. Like that's not. It felt like.
I also want us, this is like my deep naivety, but I like really want us to be able to trust consumers too, like the standards are weakened, and so like. The option is like we could lie about it and just go along because it helps our business, or like, yeah, or like we're honest about the ways that we want it to be stronger. And like hopefully bringing more people. I mean, I think people just do not understand how their food is grown. I don't understand how half the food I eat is grown. Like I myself included. Like I don't know anything about coffee production, really. But I'm like, it's fair trade, shade grown. But I think like the more we're talking about it, honestly, the more likely that we're all like as a society becoming a little bit more immersed in the vegetables to produce some.
It's interesting with these labels too, is because sometimes I wonder like how much is for the farmer, like, no, this is what I'm doing, and how much is for the consumer. And for those two things to actually line up where the label can communicate what the farmer is doing to and honestly, that relationship that we were talking about earlier is critical. But if you can't have that relationship with your farmer, the labels, maybe they do stuff with the side. So
I just want to mention something. There's a book I read about a decade ago, since you bring up coffee called During Change, you call it effectively. And I think it has a parallel to this. It kind of talks about, it primarily focuses on coffee production and labor dynamics there, but how fair trade became within its own breakfast trade, and how there's these negotiations to let Starbucks use the fair trade. And there's arguments about, well, if we do that, then the standards would weaken, but we're letting in this huge producer, so that beneficial is that negative. And it just seems like the forces of capitalism have this way of like diluting these core values and standards and greenwashing the fair. And I think it's similar with organic. Like once it has been weakened, is their way to build it back up in the consumer's mind. You just need to switch to a new label and learn this add-on certifications and some interesting parallels there.
I think you bring up a good point, and maybe Ian's going to talk about top, but this new program is a lot of focus and money put into local organizations like NOFA to be able to help farmers navigate. But they're finding they don't have enough supply of organic ingredients for people that are making organic products. So first they have to have more farms that are organic, and then the ingredients they can have more organic ingredients. So it's a need, and it's a supply and demand, and we need more supply. And that's this huge program that they've unleashed for $300 million is evidence of that.
well, so I can jump into that now, and then we can, if there's time for any more questions. So top is the Transition to Organic Partnership Program, and a little bit earlier, the USDA has made these cooperative agreements with regional partners such as Pennsylvania Certified Organic and NOFA Mass, NOFA New Hampshire, NOFA New Jersey, we're all helping connect our organic farmers to resources. So whether it's certification resources or technical assistance resources. Basically the USDA wants more people, more farmers to certify organic. And in Massachusetts, you know, we're not growing a bunch of corn and soybeans to certify. So our audience and who we're asking to certify is a little different, and I think requires conversations like these. So if you are an organic farmer or a farmer who's thinking about transitioning, you can reach out to us and we can help you get certified and enroll you in a mentorship program. Or if you are a certified organic farmer, you can be a mentor, people with qualifications. You get paid a stipend and you can help a farm in their transition certification process. It's a 5-year-long program, so if you don't think you're quite ready yet or whatever, you know, take your time, hit us up next year. Or if you know any folks who might be interested in any farmers who would benefit from the technical assistance resources or just the overall organic certification for them to your local, you know, chapter. The USDA. Yeah, transition to organic partnership program. And what we're trying to do at NOFAmass is basically really have it be representative of what our farmers need. So it's any part of this conversation about the cost and the benefits and all these other things, and it needs to be grounded in that, so that the way that NOFAmass develops the program actually helps folks to basically be the best farmers that they need. Like, why not leverage this funding, this program, to basically hold ourselves to those higher standards that we're all. Are we doing on time, Devin? We have time for one more question, or?
Would that also entail letting these newer farmers say that we have these markets here because there are these needs? Ingredients we need. I think that's a challenge for farmers to make sure they can sell. Yeah, there's another portion of the program which we're not directly involved in called market development that the USDA has funded. That's going to be managed by the Organic Trade Association, but it hasn't trickled down to our point yet, but that's definitely going to be part of it where they're looking for certain ingredients.
I think that's courageous, but it's part of the whole continuum that they deal with and seem to every so my perishable product.
Yeah, you might think it's a good idea to make a value out of like black garlic, but is it really, is a market out there? Right?
I'm curious about the timeline. Jeremy mentioned a 3-year period to become certified. Is that like the baseline? If you're going into a fallow field that hasn't been farmed in years, can you meet the certification requirement within years?
3 years since there was a prohibited substance.
Oh, okay.
Just to prove there's no prohibitive substance applied.
You
You could become
basically sign
certified.
an affidavit. And there haven't been non-approved substances.
So you could become certified within a year.
This year, yeah.
Are there any, we're coming up on time, are there any last like thoughts or, you know, seeds you want to plant, recommendations for people who are either thinking or skeptical or excited or whatever?
Well, I will say that NOFAmass has helped processors and farmers since 2014 navigate the process. So if you need help, just reach out. And now all of our NOFAs in the Northeast are part of this help also. So yeah, just reach out and you have an answer some questions.
Yes, I signed up to be a mentor for that top program.
I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be about top, it can just be about like, you know, your thoughts and feedback on like our talk today or anything.
I think farming can be lonely, or like you can feel like you're doing it all by yourself. And one unintended consequence of certification is that like I actually do kind of feel like basic has my back. It can be nice so to know that there are people who are paying attention. And when I first did the certification paperwork, I called up one of my mentors and I was like, what do I do about this? I'm so nervous. And he's like, listen, they want your money. So they want to certify you. They're gonna help you. This isn't a test, so.
That's a really good point, because, you know, they do want you to be certified, and if they show up the first year and the records are not such that they should be, you get plenty of chances to make it right, so it's not like you're going to be, you know, shot down the first time.
Well, thanks so much, everybody. I encourage us all to keep this conversation going, talking about the whole process and the culture behind organic growing and certification, and just how we can help you. Thank you all for joining. It was a pleasure. Thanks to our panel here. That's where Devin.
That's it. I dropped links in the chat for anybody logged on virtually. Please support the auction. Log on to nofamass.org to learn more about the transition to organic partnership program and keep supporting local farms.
Thanks, everybody.